Good deal. All right. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'd like to call the Board of Trustees regular meeting for February 17th at 6 o'clock.
We'll call the roll. Mr. Mahoney?
Here.
Mr. Genowine?
Here.
Mr. Simcoe? Here. Mr. Crandall?
Here. Wow.
Stand for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Did anybody have any questions from the 27th and the 3rd, our last two meetings? Any changes or anything of that nature?
No.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. Calling the roll. Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes. And do we have any additions or deletions to tonight's agenda? John?
I have none.
Okay. And then hearing of the public, do we have anything of that for the agenda items only?
Nothing on the agenda items.
Okay. Hey, John, do you want to move the fire department?
Yes.
Up a little bit? Okay.
If we could move the fire department recognition of the retirement. Chief, you're up.
Thank you. Almost forgot what.
Came in at a good time, Chief.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to go first. I appreciate it. We have a retirement we're going to talk about this evening. But before we do that, I would like to, before I acknowledge Ralph, Lieutenant Shetler, and his years of service to the department, I would like to acknowledge the unsung hero of this tandem, and that's Sue, Ralph's wife. Over the years, I'm sure Sue has had many missed dinners, anniversaries, some events with the family. I'm sure Ralph was better off at work than he was at the event. Sometimes those are good to be. But you are the unsung heroes of the fire department. So as a gesture, we'd like to give you those flowers at least for you to have as our appreciation for allowing us to have your husband for these 26 some years. We do appreciate it. Lieutenant Shetler was appointed to the department on October 18, 1989. He was promoted to lieutenant on October 25, 1995, after just 6 years of service on the job, which is very unusual as careers go in the fire department. Usually it's many more years of service before you're promoted to the position of lieutenant. So that just gives you an idea of how good Ralph is. Ralph is known for his honesty, his integrity, and his can-do attitude. During his years of service, he has mentored many new employees, and sharing with them his knowledge, skills, and compassions for the job. These individuals will indeed be his legacy. Ralph, on behalf of the department, you have definitely made a difference in the safety and well-being of our community, and for this we thank you and wish you nothing but the best in your retirement. You can clap now for him. That's a tough act to follow. I'd like to thank everybody for the opportunity to serve. I just would like to say that the members of the fire department are quiet, serious, dedicated professionals who strive to provide the service the community deserves. And I ask the elected officials to support them and not obstruct them in their quest for that service. Thank you.
We'll go back.
Congratulations.
Best wishes.
Yeah.
We'll go back to the regular agenda items now.
Okay.
And the first item is the zoning department, the January monthly report. Carol?
Good evening. You have before you the monthly report for January for zoning. We had a real good month permit-wise for January. We had 25 permits with an estimated value of $1.4 million. You can see how that reflects to the previous 2 years, and definitely a good start to the year. Scott, if you could scroll down a little bit. Yeah, right there. Our new single-family dwelling permits, year-to-date. For January, we had 7, which almost doubles what we had last year, 75% increase. The estimated value is actually a little bit down from where we were last year, with just under 4%, but still a good start to the year. And then zoning complaints, not really much to say there. We had 3 for the month, which is pretty consistent with the previous 2 years. Next page, please. Meetings, we did not have BZA or project plan review. There was nothing on the agendas, and the zoning commission heard the 2 zone change requests that this board heard at the last meeting, the one on Heisler and the one on McCord Road. Items of note, not really much there. I do want to kind of give a shout out here to Mossing Pools, who is moving from the city of Sylvania, their location at Brent and McCord, to new location in the township on Central, right near McCord. They've got more space at this new location for storage, so welcome to them. And that's about all I have, if you have any questions.
Thanks, Darrell.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for Rob, or Rob, do you have anything for the board? Then next up, take your time. This is the fire department, item number 5, it's resolution.
Doing my PT today. Excuse me. I have for you, in front of you, Resolution 15-023 to elect the volunteer firefighters dependent fund board members. This is that fund that we subscribe to every year for our part-time employees.
I'll offer Resolution 15-023 to elect volunteer firefighters dependents fund board members. Do we know who those are, or you guys just handle that?
We'll have it internally, but there'll have to be at least one of you on the board, and the only time we'll have to meet is if we have an unfortunate incident, everybody's injured or anything like that, or has fatality. That's the only time we'll have to meet. So I'll bring you up to date on all those things later. But it's usually 2 from the fire department, 1 from the board of trustees, and then 1 outside. And I thought a retired firefighter would be appropriate for that.
Second?
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Okay, and then I have before you January's monthly report, and try to keep it brief. The first 2 pages, again, are our total runs for the month of January and our incidents. Page 3 are our mutual aid incidents. We had 4 incidents during the month of January. I believe 2 from Toledo, 2 from Richfield, mutual aid ambulances, because there were no ambulances available in the township, or in the Lucas County, excuse me. And on page 5, public risk reduction, or community risk reduction, we had 5 public education events, just 9 fire safety inspections due to the weather, and we're just getting back up on our inspections for 2015. We installed 2 new smoke alarms. Again, these smoke alarms were provided by a grant from Safe Kids. That grant has been extended into March. Chief Frederick earned his credentials. I think you all recognize that. I like to recognize Deputy Chief Frederick also for earning his credentials of the Ohio Fire Chiefs Association. Basically, it's a process that he has to go through following strict guidelines that they have set forth in establishing a higher degree of professionalism and to provide certification in the state of Ohio as a chief officer. Deputy Chief Ram and myself are both going to go through that process also. building and public plan reviews. We had 17 plan reviews that were done in January, 1 license inspection for daycares, and 5 foster care inspections. And we had 1 arson fire in January. The suspect was identified, interviewed by our fire investigator and the city detective. We did took samples and sent it down to the state. We received it back positive for an accelerant, and we charged the individual with arson. That case is still pending. Number 6, we're back to the Lucas County Education. There were 58 58 paramedics that attended that education in January, and Acting Captain Fry is getting his feet wet now in the captain's position and getting familiar with our training program and starting out with some new ideas for 2015. Page 7, Al Hassenfrass went down to Orlando again on his own time, in his own dime, actually took vacation to do this, to go to the National Fire Protection Association Board. They dealt with aerial testing this time. He's one of 2 in the nation that are on this board, and I think it's quite a feather in his cap for him to go down there and participate in this activity. Basically, it's an association that they deal with line of duty deaths, make sure that the equipment and the standards for the equipment and the checks that we do every day are up to par, so we don't have any line of duty deaths for vehicle accidents or vehicles that are not kept up properly. And you can read that. I sent that. You should have that also in an email. I sent that to you. So trying to keep it brief for you. And that's all I have, unless you have something for me. No?
I don't.
Again, thank you for allowing us to do Ralph's.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Next up is Chief Brumley for the monthly report.
You have before you the monthly report for January 2015. Page 2, you'll just see the total calls received into the police station over the various lines. Page 3, you'll see our calls for service in the month of January were 1,132 calls, which is down a little bit from the prior year. And then I won't go through all the different numbers there, because one month doesn't really give you a real good idea anyway. We're pretty much on the numbers for most of them. We're up in writing traffic citations. That's probably the only thing of note. Page 4, our prisoner transport cost analysis for transporting for the city. You can see thus far it hasn't cost us a nickel. Page 5, the detective caseload stats. Again, I won't go over all the numbers. We continue to be pretty busy in that regard, and having 50 cases assigned in the month of January. The clearance rate is still running pretty good, as you can see. The numbers obviously to the right, all the way to the right in the columns, are the ones to take a look at. Page 6, our detective assigned to the DEA task force. You can see as far as the drugs seized by that task force, the heroin continues to be the drug of choice. You can see that they seized a pretty decent amount of currency, which again we will reap the benefits of that down the road. And you can see in the last sentence there that they've developed some confidential informants such that they're going to be hopefully making a little bigger dent in some of the Toledo trade around here. Page 7. It wasn't a busy month for the K-9. You can see that training is the issue in preparation for the certification in May. Second paragraph, you can see just one example where that officer with the K-9 did take a gun out of a car that had 2 felons, one of which was just out on parole, just out of prison. So obviously, we have some pretty dangerous people that they're not just in Toledo, they're out here too. Page 8, community affairs activities. I won't go through all those. Suffice it to say, we're beginning preparation for the another Citizens Police Academy, and well down the road for Safety Town. And we're currently in Whiteford and Stranahan Elementary Schools teaching there. And you can see the speed trailer. With the weather, we're not getting any real speeding complaints or anything at this point. I think before anybody would get over the speed limit, they'd probably lose it on the snow and ice anyway, which I guess would be fair riddance or whatever. Page 9, again, you can see our forfeiture report from the property room, and also our Savannah Municipal Court revenue report. And page 10, the overtime based down by, or broken down by bargaining unit members, be it the OBPA. You can see what we incurred as far as overtime. And the last page, page 11, we haven't gotten into a whole lot of training yet. You can see our training totals. And that's all I have. Here to answer any questions or concerns you may have.
I have one that doesn't really relate to this, but I got a message from the Chamber of Commerce, and they were asking both the police and fire if they needed electrical at their Savannah Expo booths.
Okay.
We will.
Okay.
And I'll have to check on that from my end.
We've had excuse me, I'm sorry.
No, go
We've had
ahead.
contact with them already. Chief Fred's taking care of that.
Okay.
They've been advising of that.
They called me Friday and asked, and I said I'd try to get back to them, so if you've done that, great.
Do you want me, if you have a contact person, we can talk to them directly, so you don't have
It was Laura Glover.
to... Glover?
Glover, Glover.
Okay. And she's with the
Savannah
chamber?
Chamber.
Okay,
Laura Glover, sorry.
okay.
Tomato.
Dave, you?
Yeah, I have a question for you, Chief.
Yes.
Do we have a policy for our police when they are out directing traffic, like let's say at an accident scene? Are they required to wear like an orange vest or something?
They should be wearing their vest, yeah. Most of them are yellow, actually.
Oh,
But yeah, they should be wearing their vest.
Okay, is that well, by the circumstance I came upon, I was going down, Whiteford Road, and there was an accident at Sylvania and Whiteford, and the light's green for me, and then I do see the rescue vehicles there, but there was one of our fellows out there directing traffic. That's a bad intersection.
Mm-hmm.
It was morning when I was, going into work, and it's almost like a deer in the woods. You can't see the guy because you're at an angle, and there's trees kind of there behind him, and he's got on his brown suit, but he didn't have like a vest on.
Okay.
And you couldn't really see him, and I imagine someone coming up, with a little speed, seeing the light or this or that, you don't catch the guy out there trying to, no vest on or anything. Now,
Sure.
There's another one out there, another one of our officers that did have a vest on, and so I just call it to the attention because someone could there might be an accident, but they might be run over,
Yeah.
and you don't see them.
Well, I thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Yeah.
It's something we have to constantly, remind them every so often. And quite frankly, what happens sometimes is, especially an injury accident or whatever, you jump out of that car real quick because the vests are carried in the trunk of the car normally. Because they've got enough other gear in the front seat with them and such. And I'm not making excuses.
Right.
But quite frankly, especially on an injury accident, if they get there before the fire department or such, they're going to jump out of that car and check on the condition of the people
Sure.
involved in the accident.
Understood, yeah.
And then, quite frankly, sometimes you get tied up with other things or whatever,
Yeah.
and it slips your mind. But I'll remind them again.
You're right, just because
we
it's
certainly
their
don't
own
want to get
safety,
anybody hurt.
and I guess
Right.
really the public's, because you don't necessarily see them,
Mhm.
and they're trying to direct the traffic, and then the light's up there maybe doing something, saying something different than what they're telling you to do.
Sure.
Which was the case. I had to stop, and I had a green light, and, because he's got people going on Sylvania,
Right.
And so I just thought for their own safety.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying,
Reminding them,
yep, I appreciate you saying something. We sure will.
that's all.
Okay,
Thanks, Chief.
thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks.
Yes, Chief. Next up being the administrator, Greg is here under his special projects to give a presentation of the proposed bikeway routes and what's happening here in the township and the city.
Good evening. Before you is a presentation for a draft Sylvania Bikeways initiative. I was tasked to sit on this committee, and the committee comprises of Sylvania Township, the City of Sylvania, the school system, the Oldlander Park system, and the Sylvania Area Rec Joint District. We met a couple of times, and so far this is what we've come up with. And I just to emphasize that this is a draft. I'd like to call your attention to the mall area, where we are just simply proposing just some routes, some bike routes here to connect the neighborhoods and to provide egress north and south off of the main roadways, off of the Holland Sylvanias and the Talmadge areas and things along that line. Again, over here with the dense population of the St. James, Jamesford Woods, all these subdivisions here, just connecting some egress, and also up in the northwest area, connecting some of the other parks that have already been established. It's conceptual as of now. Just wanted to hear your thoughts, and if there's no comments, then we'll just move forward under this pretense. There's still some tweaking that we'll need to do, and here is like a wooded area, and so there's just still some fine drafting to go involved here, but this plan does not include any roadway widening, anything along this line. Perhaps some signage eventually, and maybe even bike path, bikeways routing system. Eventually, this will go to TMACOG for an overview at the county level. So, any questions?
What's the big question mark there for?
That was supposed to represent the ProMedica area at the time when the map was designed. So, and actually the city of Sylvania is looking, at perhaps some egress into that area there, Mr. Genuine, being a new area developed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so.
And that red dotted up there, that's the new expanded City of Sylvania Haroon Park Trail?
Up in here?
Yes.
Yes. Over at the, as well as I think along the Flower Hospital area, in the back area there. Again, that's why all the entities were invited on this committee, so we can network and share our ideas, and actually the paths. You could be in the township 1 minute, in the city in the next minute, so. Mr. Simcoe?
Any thought on trying to get any, like, let's say, grant money to put in, to do a little road widening? I see Flanders up there where I'm at, and geez, there's a little white line on the, and I don't think I could drive down what's left there, I can't go that straight anymore.
Your three-wheel tricycle's not going to cut it.
Well, one wheel's going to be in the ground, one will be on the pavement, one will be in the mud. If I tip over and had it. But is there grant money ever available for stuff like that? Where you can, you can't do something like that on Monroe Street, but on some of the streets, I wonder.
I would believe the answer is yes, eventually. Okay. Once our bikeways are finalized, so to speak, and then moved on to TMACOG at the upper level, and then we can, as we apply for these grants, we can actually say, this is an established bike path.
Okay.
So.
It'll also be by jurisdiction, Dave, like Flanders.
Correct.
County. So
Okay.
they'll have to address that issue.
Okay.
So.
Thanks, Greg.
Okay, thank you.
Looks good.
Thanks, Greg. Next up, I think at our last meeting, you were given some sheets of paper about various organizations for funding requests and dues, and at this time, if you have any comments or questions, or you want to talk about the different requests, we can do that now, or once again, we can, if you have any questions, we can answer them for you.
Are we going to count the snow shoveling for the Sylvania Area Family Services as our donation, or is that?
I was unaware of that until it was brought up.
Do we do that?
One of you want to come up?
Not officially. Not officially.
We don't provide any snow removal for that area, no.
I just saw the email. I thought it was kind of funny.
Oh, okay. Maybe I was that guy. Boy, some of these requests, especially SCAT, is there any background there, Chief, on SCAT? It's a pretty healthy request they have, and I didn't see anything that seemed to address that need.
Deb should have sent you all an email with her request for the money. Putting my other hat on now as the president of SCAT, I will tell you that last year we were in dire need of funds because we lost our grant, our government grant. Since then, we have gotten another grant from the Mental Health Board, not as much as we had from the government, but we are able to sustain ourselves with that. In order for us to continue to do the stuff that we do, like everybody else, our fundraisers are down, our sales for the Skatacular were a little bit under what we anticipated this year from last year. So,
Chief Bomey, how much does SCAT pay the police department to police the teen parties and that sort of stuff? Do you know how much we get there?
Well, I don't have the figures in front of me, but I will say they fund our compliance checks that we usually do twice a year to make sure all the local establishments aren't selling to underage adults. They do fund what we call a party patrol, especially around prom season and homecoming and such, where we employ a couple of officers on an overtime basis to patrol just for those parties and that sort of thing. So they do fund some extra law enforcement type activities. I don't have the figures in front of me. I could get them for you. Okay. But yeah, we work hand in hand with them quite regularly as far as trying to be proactive so that we don't suffer a tragedy, hopefully.
Thanks.
Sure.
this year also, we'll be running the event right before prom, where we have mock accident. We bring in the helicopters and all those other professionals to take care of doing that for the kids in the schools.
Is that something you guys want to wait on and go through it, or I can go either way. I'd like to, I guess I'd like to try to keep somewhat where we've been the last 4 years.
We bumped them a little bit.
We did, yes, we did. Yeah.
I don't know. I guess, as a general statement, I would like to know more about each group, what all their sources of funding are. I gave you a form, John, and I shared it with the other trustees here. But on the other hand, I don't want to hold these groups up. So I would make a motion to do the same donations we did last year. And maybe we could get this form. I'll work with you on that.
For next year.
Necessary, but let's tell them for next year, we need to know more about their group, the number of volunteer hours, their sources of funding, some of that information.
That's fair.
If that's okay with the other two, I'll work on
Yep.
that. But I guess I'll move to do the same funding level we did last year.
Would that,
We need to,
That would be
28?
the 14, the 20, not the 20. I've got.
29? Okay. Offer resolution 15-029 to do the same funding as we did last year for attached schedule?
second?
That was you, John, made the motion.
Yes.
Okay, I'll call the roll. Mr. Genoway?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Thank you. My next resolution is 15027. It's an appointment to the Tax Incentive Review Council. Since the township has actually granted some tax exemptions for the old Kroger area out there on Sylvania and King, that we are required to appoint 2 people to be members of that council. I have been going to that, they meet once a year to go over whether the companies are meeting what they said they'd do to keep continuing the tax incentive. This resolution is appointing myself and Scott Smith to be on the Tax Incentive Review Council. And this is set up by Ohio Revised Code.
Is that for the TIF that's
Yeah.
there?
I'll offer Resolution 15-027 to appoint members to the Tax Incentive Review Council.
Second?
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Next up, Mr. Simko.
Yes, well, we have the month-end analysis for January, but as you can see, the numbers are pretty meager here, and for example, our expenses are up a little bit, but then we had 3 pay periods in January, and so it kind of levels out when we get into February and March. And revenues are really the same. It's hard to say really. I mean, we had some advances on our tax monies, and so they're up a little higher than what they really should be. Other than the general fund, they don't really get any money off of the tax advances. So it's really not that meaningful. There's nothing unusual in these numbers here. So if you don't have any questions, I'll just kind of move on. The first resolution I have is 15-026, and I have my order here, my little packet. 24. Oh, yeah, backwards. 24. 15024, and it's it's an appropriation from unencumbered balance. And what we're really doing, this is kind of reflecting a little bit of Scott, kind of coming in and working in the finance department, really where we are maybe trying to change a little bit and not have to come to the board with each little change in a fund where we run a little bit short. And we're trying to, he and I have discussed this, and I think it's the right way to go. We don't have to keep coming in here. So we have these, make some adjustments in some of the accounts. And so, Scott, do you have anything more you want to add to that? Because there's a couple resolutions. Because,
we discussed the budget last
right.
month. We do some blanket purchase orders at the beginning of the year where we encumber the money for the whole year. And it becomes apparent that we needed some extra revenue in certain line items. So we thought, rather than just do like a 6-month and then come back into another 6 months, we just do it now. So we can be done with it. And there'll be others like this then too as we go on.
Account number 223-331-51450.
That's just more salt.
Okay.
We are buying salt, and yeah, that's the only one that's kind of meaningful there. Yeah, that jumps out at us. And so I'll offer that resolution 15-024.
I'll offer 15-024 to increase appropriations from unencumbered balance.
Second.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Speaking of salt, I think we're going to need some more tomorrow night. That's what they're saying. So.
Great.
I'll be in Columbus.
Oh, sorry.
We're just having a ball here with that. Let's see, resolution 15-025, and some grant funds have been received, and they need to be returned to the advance from the police fund to the police grant fund, and for the bulletproof vest grant. And so, again, it's a smaller amount of money, and it's advanced out to the police grant fund and advanced into the police fund. And you guys know, we always on these grants, we usually have to pay the money in advance, and then the grant money comes in and that, but it takes a little while, and it just involves some bookwork back and forth on these things.
I'll offer 15-025, advance of funds.
Second?
Call the roll, Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
And my last one is, really similar to the first one, and this is 15026-026. And what we're really doing is just transferring appropriations. Some line items need to be increased because there's shortfalls in the original budget. Well, there's just one here and that, and it's in our computer services and software. And Scott kind of recognized that we really need a little bit more money there.
Actually, this between funds, there's no...
Okay, all right. Okay, yes.
I'll offer resolution 15-026, transfer appropriations.
Second.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
That is all I have.
Okay, thanks, Dave, appreciate it. Any open discussion among the board here? Any question or issues, topics? And then hearing of the public for non-agenda items. Okay, Tom Creaky, come on up.
Good evening, Tom Creedy, 9555 Sylvania Avenue. And I promise not to bore you guys about drainage for a half hour this time, but would like to thank Mr. Huffman. I did check on his progress on the 10 Mile Creek this fall, and I think he we did not waste his time. That was quite the log jam, and they got it removed. So thank you for that. Now I stand before you as a I guess, representative of Western Sylvania Township in regards to our fire department and increases in pay from what we've been reading in the Blade and hearing through the grapevine. And just as a advice going forward to maybe tread lightly, I'm not trying to make enemies or put a target on my back or families to the fire department. They've done a great job. Rescuing my grandfather, we've had several calls. Not an issue with that, but I sat at the community meetings here where we heard about personnel, staffing issues, equipment issues that were failing, and I was disappointed to see the first thing we addressed in 2015 is substantial pay increases and some new Tahoes. So I would like to see maybe some additional personnel added for that same money, $400,000 or whatever I saw in the Blade. Could have hired possibly 6 to 8 new firemen. And I know that maybe is on the agenda to get some coming. But I'm just relaying from what we're hearing in the community that there was some disappointment. And I guess I'm not warning you guys, I'm just saying, let's tread lightly. The public was generous enough to pass the levy, and I think the fire department greatly appreciated that. But let's be careful with how we spend this money going forward. And people are taking note, and I would just hate to see you end up like the school systems where we have new schools, new buses, pay increases, and then we ask for more money and say, guess what? You're not getting it this time because people are moving out of the township. Mr. Mahoney's no stranger to this. His partner's moving out of high tax area, there's people going to Monclova, other areas, leaving places that are taxing higher. So I just would like to see the administration and everybody kind of tread lightly going forward. And let's all work together, get some good equipment, and look out for the community. But when we're fat in everybody's pockets, it's scary where we're heading. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Tom. One of the one issue, not issue, but the thought, Tom, of people leaving town is not true. You know, being on the zoning commission, you had one of probably your best years having a lot of projects to look at. You saw that the new homes. Because a particular person we both know is moving out of town doesn't reflect what's actually happening out here in the township with a lot of other people. So that's the only thing I'd like to add.
But I do think that those other communities are beating us in terms of new starts, Monclova and Perrysburg and those sort of things. And there's not a lot we can do, but just keep an eye on the budget to make sure that...
Well, believe me, rest assured, I think we've been pretty prudent in our spending, and just looking at the budget numbers, the revenues and the expenses over the last few years in the fire department, we're well below the budget in the actual numbers that we've proposed. So, thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Here, these are the numbers from 2014. You've seen them. These are the numbers that are the actuals in the budgets. Actually, I got this because I had to use it in tomorrow's presentation.
Next on the agenda is a motion to go into executive session for compensation for non-union personnel.
I'll move that we go into executive session for personnel compensation, non-union.
Second.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
It's at 6:40.
6:40.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
You keep that for yourself?
I keep that, yeah.
Okay.
20 seconds.
Started.
Okay, we are going. My tape's on too?
Motion to come out.
Yeah. So we need a motion to
I'll move
come
that
out of
we
executive
come out of
session?
executive session,
At
7:45.
7:45.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes, and I'll second it.
Okay.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, and then we need a motion, oh, we have a resolution. Take it.
Offer Resolution 15-028 to authorize the pay rates for non-union personnel. Be it resolved by the trustees of Sylvania Township, Lucas County, that the pay rates for non-union personnel be authorized as per attached.
Second.
Let's see, wait a second here. Mahoney, Crandall, okay. Calling the roll, Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Thank you. And our next meeting will be...
Offer a motion to adjourn at 8:46, 7:46.
Second?
Calling the roll, Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Our next meeting will be March 3rd.
Oh,
You see, we got a meeting